And what is up, everybody? I am Joe DeHoyos. I am host of Beyond the Woodline. Real quick before we get started with the show, I would like to tell you guys everything that's going on in my little world. For those of you who don't know, or some of you who may know, I am part of the JRG, which is a Jevning Research Group. It's a Bigfoot group. It's headed up and founded by Mr. William Jevning. Man, that guy's got close to 50 years of experience in the Bigfoot field. And we've got teams in New York State, Florida, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Missouri, California, Oregon, and of course here in Texas where I'm at. And we also network with a bunch of different teams. We know people all over the country. If you guys are interested in helping out with this search, let us know. We'll set you up with somebody, and we will vet you as well as vet whoever we set you up with, because there are some crazy people, unfortunately, in this world. And we also tell you too, hey, vet the researcher too, right? You got to research the researcher, right? Anybody you go out with, check them out, make sure they're cool. Um, but we certainly help out with that process, and we do have forms online where you guys can go to and fill out, or have your witnesses fill out if you come across a witness. You don't have to get out into the field once a month, twice a month. You go out when you can. And for those of you who don't want to or who can't go out, you can do your research from your laptop, your cell phone, you know, your iPad, whatever. You can help find witnesses, find locations. You have techniques that you want us to try out. We'll always listen to those, and we'll take those under consideration, and we'll probably try them. As long as they're not, anything dangerous. But yeah, if you guys are interested, hit me up beyond.woodline@gmail.com, and we'll get together and we'll get the ball rolling. And of course, as always, I know you guys don't tune in to hear me ramble off at the mouth. Tonight, I have with me Miss Kay Gallegos, also known as Astral Kay. How are you doing, Kay?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? And thank you for having me on. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Oh yeah, man, no problem. Yeah, thank you too. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, I mean, I came across you on TikTok, and it was like it was meant to be because I had people talking to me about dark entities. I myself have been interested in astral travel, um, and remote viewing. I know they're a little bit different, but I'm interested in all that stuff too. I actually had some people about 2 weeks prior to talking to you that were supposed to come on, but they wind up canceling. So you came on at a perfect time. Like I said, it was meant to be.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but I mean, you actually cover a lot more than that too. But those are probably the big two things that I was really interested in. So if you don't mind, real quick, why don't you give us a little bio on yourself, so a little background information, and what got you started into all this?
Absolutely. I have been having astral projection experiences ever since I can remember, just like my entire life. I'm 36 years old, so when I was just a young girl, I started experiencing sleep paralysis and astral projection and like floating in my room, like above my body. I didn't know what was going on. I was really confused by it and scared because it was, it's quite the experience.
Right.
And I was being attacked by these shadow entities constantly. I was afraid to go to bed at night, and I would just be praying all the time because these shadow entities would come and scratch me and bite me and just attack me during sleep paralysis and such. And as I got older, I started to figure things out. I kind of started to get the hang of it, how to astral project and go the places where I wanted to go, because it always just happened suddenly. I didn't have control over it. It would just happen to me. But as I grew older, I started to do research and try different things, and I could control it. And I learned how to fend off these dark entities, these shadow creatures and demons and all of that stuff. But I was always a little hesitant to share with people because I thought, oh my goodness, people are going to think I'm crazy if I tell them that I'm like traveling in my astral body across the country and getting attacked by demons at night. I don't want to talk about it. And
Right.
especially growing up at that time, there wasn't a lot of information. People weren't talking about it. There was no YouTube or anything like that. So In my college years, that's when things began to open up a little bit more. I began to tell people about what was happening to me, and I started to find other people that were experiencing the same things, especially with the shadow entities. So most of my life, I just personally did as much research as I could and learned as much as I could, like how to really get good at astral projection. And I would help people from time to time. But I didn't start talking about it publicly until recently because I thought I have this information that could be helpful to other people. And I really want to start sharing as much as possible. And I've received a lot of really good positive feedback. There's so many people that are experiencing these things, but they don't want to discuss it, or they're afraid to talk about it. They don't know what to do. It seems like these shadow entities are becoming more common. People have sleep paralysis all the time, and there's like nowhere to turn or nowhere to go. And I thought, okay, I want to share as much as possible, hopefully spread some information and some knowledge and help some people out. So that's where I'm at right now, is trying to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, well, man, that's good on you. I think you're doing a great job so far. And yeah, you're right. It seems like. Do you think it's happening more and more, or just people are a little bit more vocal about it?
I think it's probably a combination. I think more people are open to discussing these things now as opposed to 30 years ago or 20 years ago. More people are more willing to talk about it. But there seems to be a trend, like it's just happening more often. Like
Mhm.
within the group of people I've known, they didn't have any experiences with sleep paralysis or shadow entities or anything like that. And then in recent years, I've had almost all of my friends come and tell me, like, oh my goodness, last night I had sleep paralysis and a shadow creature came and attacked me. And I thought, "Oh, well, see, I told you guys this is real."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, they believed me. They knew I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
But it just seems to be more people are experiencing it. And for some reason, that's just becoming more common, and people are being more vocal about it now.
Yeah. About, I guess, let's see, 52, so 31 years ago, when I was 21, I was in my mom's house, and I was laying in bed, and this is like a story I haven't really told. I think I told like one person before, and I was laying in bed, and I happened to look up, and I seen this guy. He was had a long trench coat, a black like fedora type hat, right? Um, I could kind of see his face, but only like from here down because of the shadow that was coming down on him. Even though it was in the dark, he still had like a shadow right here. Where I could only see like his mouth. And he walked over there towards my bed, and he was right next to me in my bed, and I was just looking. And this is all I could see was like his chin and his mouth. And it was the scariest thing that I had ever seen, right? And then years later, my niece, she grew up, got married. She moved into that my mom's house, and while she was there, her ex-husband, he saw the same entity. And then years later, after they moved out, my sister was over there. I don't know, they were cleaning up my mom's house or whatever, helping her out. But her son, he was like 5 or 6 at the time, and then he saw the same entity there. And he went under the bed and hid, and he wouldn't come out of his bed until like his dad came home. And his dad actually came home, left work, and had to get him out of the bed, like coax him out of the bed. But why do you think that happened? I mean, it was these are all several years apart, three different entities. I mean, I would say the same entity, but three different times.
Yeah, it sounds like what people refer to as the Hat Man, this
Right.
shadowy figure that wears a hat and a cloak or a three-piece suit sometimes. He looks a little bit different from
Right.
different
Yeah.
reports, but essentially the Hat Man. And he seems to latch on to families or property. Like it's not uncommon for people of the same family to have the same experience.
Hmm.
and or a land, like a certain house or a certain area. People report seeing these shadowy figures or the Hat Man like that. So that's not too uncommon, and a lot of people believe that these shadow entities like the Hat Man are drawn to certain energy. And once people recognize them and see them and give them that energy, whether it's fear or whatever, they really latch onto that and keep coming back to receive that, like a energy vampire, essentially.
Okay.
And they know, well, I got this energy from this person, and there's the same people in the same area. He could travel to each person and receive that energy like a vampire, or from that land. They stay with that land. And there's so many different theories and ideas going around because these shadow entities have been reported in every culture in every part of the world. Like, you could go back in the history books, the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Chinese, like every culture has these stories of the Hat Man or these shadow entities. So it's something that's just always been around, and there's these different ideas, but it comes down to, like, yeah, they latch onto families, they latch onto people or property, and sometimes objects,
Right.
but they just seem to show up. They seem to be attracted to energy. And other times people are uncertain, like, I don't know why we're experiencing this, but that's what we're experiencing. So, but if so many people in your family have seen them, it's probably going to continue on to the next generation.
Hmm.
'Cause that
Do you
seems to
think
be
there's
what happens.
so with these dark entities, and no matter which ones that they are, and in a little bit, I want you to kind of give us a rundown of maybe some of the most common ones. But are they necessarily evil? Because unfortunately, in the world of the paranormal, evil and demon get thrown around quite a bit.
Yeah,
So are
yeah,
these entities
yeah.
necessarily evil?
I don't think so. I think they could be evil or they could be a neutral energy.
Mm.
Some cultures even regard them as being guardians or watchers, almost like a guardian angel sort of figure. It depends on each person, each experience. I always refer to them as dark entities because my personal experience is with evil entities that physically attacked me or verbally assaulted me or some way like that. But a lot of people report, like, oh, I wasn't attacked. They just watched me. So that doesn't mean that they're necessarily evil or good. There's just a variety. There's different types.
Right.
They're as complex as human beings, it seems.
Yeah, I
So
think you're right about that too. Um,
yeah.
so
So
yeah, I want to run
go
down
ahead.
another story that happened to a really good friend of mine. I've known him for, and I bet close to 30 years, um, at least 25. Um, but I worked with him for a long time. But so happens that this was right about 25 years ago. He moved into a house, and when they saw the house up for rent, it was a few streets away from his father-in-law, and so they saw the sign, for rent. So they pulled up, um, talked to the lady, and she's like, "Yeah, the house will be ready like in 2 weeks. We're just doing the kitchen. We're going to do some remodeling. We're fixing it up." But it was only in the kitchen, and so he's like, "Okay, cool." He goes, "They came to an agreement on the price, and 2 weeks later, they're moving in, right?" So as he's moving in, a guy across the street walks over and is like, "Hey, you got Jack's old house, huh?" And he's like, "I don't know Jack. I just know, the lady that rented the house to us." He goes, "Yeah, that's Jack's daughter. Jack lived here. He uh, he had terminal cancer, and he basically ended everything in the kitchen, right?" So as they're moving in, my buddy said it's getting dark. He starts walking around the house. He's flicking the lights on and off, and he's telling his wife, "Jack's gonna get you. Jack's gonna get you," right? Trying to scare her. Well, he said after that, the house just became like really, really negative energy. Um, one day he was there by himself, and he was laying in his bed watching TV, and his doorway was open, and he saw this guy walk past his door in a long trench coat, black, and a black hat. He said the guy looked just as real as anything else, any other man. He got up. He said he grabbed his shotgun and walked around the house. Couldn't find anybody. A couple of weeks later, he comes home at night because his wife wouldn't even stay in the house at night without him being there. We got off like at 10:30 at night. So by the time he got home, it was 11:30. And he said he pulled into the driveway. He would call his wife because she, like I said, her dad lived 3 streets over. She would stay over there. He'd call her and say, "Hey, I'm home." She'd come home. While he's sitting in the driveway, he looks into his kitchen window and he sees the same guy walking in the kitchen. So he calls his brother-in-law, who didn't live very far either. They all lived in the same little neighborhood. And he came over. They went inside the house, checked the whole house, didn't see anything. A couple weeks after that, they're at a barbecue, and he's talking to his father-in-law. He's telling him about the guy he's been seeing in the house. And his father-in-law goes, one day I was walking the dog, and the way he would walk the dog, he would pass up his street, Richard Street, and he looked down towards Richard's house, and he saw a guy in a black coat, long trench coat, and a black hat, standing on the sidewalk looking at Richard's house. He walks down 2 streets or whatever, makes a U-turn, comes back up Richard Street, and the guy is walking away. So when he gets to the end of the street, he makes a right. So by the time his father-in-law gets to the street, he looks down. He says the guy's gone. He's like, I don't know where he went. There's no way he could have just disappeared, right? So after that, Richard thinks he invoked this hat man to come into the house by doing Jack's gonna get you, Jack's gonna get you. He still blames himself for all that. Do you think he invoked him?
That could be a possibility
Yeah,
because these things tend to be attracted to certain energies. And people also report saying, I want to see the Hat Man. I want to see these things. And guess what happens? They
yeah,
show up.
right,
Whether you're joking or not, you know, be careful what you wish for,
yeah,
essentially. Be careful what you say, because that's exactly, you're just inviting them in. And
right.
once they get a reaction from you, they seem to return. If you go,
Yes,
oh my goodness, I'm scared. Oh, great. I could get a reaction out of this person, So
right,
I'm going to
yeah,
keep returning. But I believe, like, even if he may have just been joking, that certainly could have invoked that being to come visit. That was just like, a calling card. Okay, here I am.
yeah, yeah. So do you think? And I know you said that you were attacked as a child. Could they like do like serious bodily harm?
Well, you could certainly wake up and have marks on your body, like scratch marks, bite marks, and things like that. I've never heard of anyone like getting so severely hurt that they had to go to the hospital or anything like that. But people do wake up with marks on their body, and you
Right.
could feel it like uh, it was very traumatic, especially as a child. I really thought, I grew up Catholic. I really thought that the devil was attacking me every night. I, on my arm or my hands or wherever, it felt as real as day, like someone was like digging their claws or nails into my hands or biting me
Hmm.
or grabbing me, just very violent, very scary. And there were times that I would have scratch marks, not always, but there is that proof at times that is
Right. Yeah.
certainly possible.
Yes. So one day Richard wakes up, him and his wife, like 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Their wife, I mean, their daughter is like screaming. At the time, she's 5, and she's screaming bloody murder from the other room. So they run over there to go see her. She's laying on the floor off her toddler bed, and the toddler bed's but like a foot off the ground, right? She's laying face down, and they pick her up. Her front tooth is missing. But not only is it missing, but her like the gum line, like her roots were just like ripped off. Like if you got punched in the tooth and your roots come out of your gum, right? And they couldn't find her tooth, and her tooth was like 10 feet away from her, you know. So they don't
Oh,
know
wow.
what happened, if that was part of this guy. But shortly after that, they got the hell out of that house and they never went back. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. That's probably for the best. I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing because,
right.
you know, it almost sounds crazy sometimes to say, but these things do happen, and it is real when you experience it. It is 100% real, and it's terrifying. It really is. I was so afraid as a child. Well, even now, like as an adult, it still happens sometimes,
Mhm.
and each time it happens, it's traumatic. It's scary, and you want to ask someone for help, or like, what do I do? Like, I'm being attacked at night, I'm afraid to go to bed because
Right.
these shadow creatures are attacking me. What do I do? So I was hoping by releasing some of my videos, things that I've learned, to help people out with these things, because it's still, how many people are really talking about this?
Right. So what have you learned yourself, and what do you do to kind of I don't know, combat these dark entities?
A lot of personal energy work. I know if I'm in a bad state of being, if I'm stressed, depressed, if I have anxiety, if I have anger, if there's a negative environment, if there's negative emotions within myself or my home, that is just, like I said, a calling card for these things to come and attack me.
Mhm.
I know that. So I do a lot of work to make sure that I'm in a positive state of being, that I'm working through my issues. I, of course, do things like I will sage my house all the time to clear the energy, do anything to clear the energy. I do have like crystals around me, and I pray. I do everything possible to ensure that the energy within myself and my environment is as clear and positive as possible. And when I do that, these attacks are less common. I could go like, 6 months, a year and a half without seeing these things if I'm always making sure that the energy is okay. The moment, like last year, I'd gone like a good year without seeing these things, without experiencing them. And last winter, I was really stressed and I had really bad anxiety. And every single night for like a week straight, I was being attacked. And I kept like, I have to do something. I have to do something to get rid of this anxiety within myself because I'm being attacked every night. They came back. They were drawn to that. So that's what I do for myself, and that helps the most, is to make sure that I'm just healthy and the environment I'm in is healthy with positive energy.
Yeah, I don't know if I did anything when I saw, because I had that, like I said, at that time, definitely for me, I had never even heard of this being, right? And I don't think I've heard about that, what it was, for like 10 years after that. When I finally figured out what I saw that night, and then I found out that so many other people were seeing it too. So yeah, that was, so I didn't do anything, but it never bothered me again after that. I think I probably prayed a lot more at that time than, you know, like, please don't let this thing get
Yeah.
me. But yeah, yeah, that was basically all I knew to do. Or like I said, I was a different person at that time, of course. So it coming over there and scaring the hell out of me probably wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people report different things too. Like, I don't want to clump everyone together, everything together, say, well, this is the answer for everything. And,
Mhm.
uh, I've spoken to so many different people, and it's really unique. Some people tell me, well, I don't have anything bad going on in my life, and they show up sometimes, and I don't know what's attracting them. I don't know what's going on, and I'm experiencing something different than you are. And it's really complex. So it comes down to each person, is what I really think. Like, on my videos, I try to really stress the fact, like, this is my personal experience,
Right.
and it's not going to be everyone's experience. and this is what I've learned, but people are unique, so I think it's important that people do have these discussions and do talk about it so we can learn as much as possible. And these this information has been around for thousands of years. Like I said, like in every culture, they have these stories of the Hat Man and shadow entities and all of this stuff. And somewhere along the line, we stopped talking about it openly, and a lot of information was lost, a lot of knowledge was lost. So if we start talking about this stuff again, like we could help each other out and maybe get to the bottom of it someday. That would be really nice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The more information that's out there, the better decisions you can make, and you know, as a whole, we can all kind of come together and figure out how to. I hate to say combat them, because if they're not being aggressive towards anybody, I don't, I kind of like say live and let live, uh, yeah,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And that's like some people, they don't harm me. I'm okay, well that's great. Then that's good for you. You don't need to be doing anything special, if you're not getting harmed. Uh,
yeah.
so
So, we talked. You kind of mentioned that there were different shadow beings or dark entities. So, like, how many do you think that there actually are, or like, how many have you come across? Like the different types.
um well, the types that have been reported, like the Hat Man, then there's the shadow entities that look like a human being, like the outline of a person. You can see their head and their shoulders. There's hooded figures where it kind of looks like a human wearing, a hood. There's the old hag. It looks like an old woman, an old witch type that attacks people. It's called the old hag syndrome. The old hag syndrome, excuse me. There's ones that look like small aliens, and then there's different types like the shadow people that have red eyes, and then others you can't see their eyes. There's the shadow mist where it looks like a cloud and you
Oh,
can't really see anything in particular. And there's all these different things that people report. I've mainly seen just the shadow people that just looks like the outline of a human being.
okay.
And I've also seen things that I would describe as demons because they weren't shadows. I could see their features and see their eyes and their skin and their bones and their teeth, and it looked like what I would describe as a demon, something straight out of the depths of hell.
Mhm.
So there's all these different kind of categories. There's probably even more because people
Yeah.
experience, so many unique things. And then within those, there's really evil, negative ones that harm people. There's ones that don't do anything, they just watch people. And then there's other ones where people say, oh, that's my friend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you hear that too, especially from like kids, right? There's a friend, there's a guy, there's a woman, or whatever, right? That I visit or comes visits me. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, so, how does your astral projection fit into all this, or does it, or is that something separate for you? Does it help you deal with this?
Well, they kind of like went hand in hand. Like when I had sleep paralysis is when I see the shadow people. And during sleep paralysis, it's like you're in your astral body, you're just really close to your physical body. So you've got like 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. And when that happens, the astral realm is divided into various planes. The lower astral realm is where the dark entities reside. When I say dark entities, I mean the evil ones that attack people. And so during sleep paralysis, you're more likely to be attacked by these dark entities because you're right near that, in that lower astral realm. If you astral project, you could go up to the higher astral planes that are more loving and peaceful, or people um, use the term like heavenly. It's just a better place to be. And in those upper astral planes, you could see guardian angels, deceased loved ones, and positive, loving entities. So if you're being attacked during sleep paralysis or something, you could actually astral project and get yourself out of there. But astral projection was just something that I was always able to do. It just happened to me. And over the years, I learned how to control it. And to this day, it still just happens to me. But once it happens, I could control it and I could go to different places and see different things and stuff like that. And it's so expanding, like it just changes everything of what you thought about the universe or thought about yourself, that I like to do that anyways. So if I'm being attacked by a dark entity, I could certainly use my astral projection to get out of that situation. But now they're just kind of separate. Like I astral project to astral project. And if I see the shadow entities or something, I'll use my tools to get them away from me and try not to experience sleep paralysis, because that's equally as awful.
Yeah. So I've tried that, right? I was only successful one time. I'll tell you that. Now I haven't tried it a lot. You know, I went through a period uh, just about 2 years ago when I was like really, really into it, really trying it, right? Um, and what happened there was like I left, right? I was like, and I was like on like at the atmosphere, and it scared the hell out of me, you know. And
Yeah, yeah.
it was the strangest thing, and I was like slammed back into my body, and I was like, I just kind of like I'm not doing that again, you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
I
know.
do want to do it again. I do want to learn it and master it, or I don't know if you could ever truly master it, but I definitely want to get start trying that again and getting better at it. When did you realize that
Well,
that's what was going on with you?
it was probably when I was in junior high or so, around that age, that I found material and resources that defined it. Up until then, like when I was elementary school age or so, I was
Mm,
just like, oh my goodness, I'm flying around at night. I don't know what's going on. I was terrified usually. Like I was floating around in my room, and I was afraid to like tell my family what was going on because I thought, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy and stuff. But eventually I did find out that my mom was experiencing the same thing.
mm,
So, um, we kind of, bonded over that experience, or, I felt less crazy or something. But in junior high is when I really started to find resources. And I want to say too, it's really incredible that you're able to do that, because it is difficult. Astral projection is difficult for most people. People could spend years and years trying to do it and they're unable to. So it's not something that everyone can do so easily. So that's pretty cool that you're able to experience that, even
mm,
though it is frightening.
right.
And I understand that fear. There's been times during astral projection I thought, oh, I'm dying. I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna be able to get back to my body. This is the end of
Yeah,
me. Like,
yeah. That's what
yeah,
really scared me was like, can I get back to my
yeah,
body? You know,
yeah,
because I knew
yeah.
I wasn't near
And
it.
usually,
Yeah,
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 usually when people do have that thought, they're like, oh, I'm scared, or this is they get slammed right back into their body. So,
yeah.
and I've never had an issue getting back to my body except for like a few times, but that was something different. That was other entities were involved. um Something was taking me. But
Yeah.
otherwise, just during astral projection, I can make it back to my body. So I got over that fear, but it took many years before I overcame that fear.
And like right before I had that experience, what I would feel was like I was like in a really fast elevator. That's what I was feeling like. I was like going up and down really fast, and then
Yeah,
one night I was gone, and I was like, I don't like this. I got to get back. you know.
yeah, yeah. I try to explain it like that. Elevator, I like that. I always tell people, like, it's like you're on a jet going at this sound of light, or at the speed of light, and you stick your head out the window. It's like you could physically feel when you, I could physically feel when I astral project, and it's just like this incredible, you're just going so fast, and I could feel this force of like I get sucked up into like above Earth's atmosphere and like
Yeah.
heading out into space. And there's this pressure on me. It feels like I'm going to explode. It feels like my physical body is going to explode, but I'm in my astral body. And
Mhm.
that, I thought, oh, I'm dead. I'm going to die. This is what happens when you die. You just blow up, I guess.
Yeah.
No. Um, but if
So
you can get over that fear and start to control it, you could do some really incredible things.
yeah, see, I would like to just like stay in my room for a while. I don't want to take off anymore. I want to be, around the house,
Yeah.
you know, kind of explore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good starting place for sure. It's just in your bedroom and work your way up from there. But like I said, a lot of people, it's really difficult to do. So you probably have like a natural talent for it, I would say. If you were able to experience it like that, it's really impressive.
Well, I don't know if it was a talent as much as I have really gotten good into meditating at that point. So I think that helped me out a lot.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
like previously, like the first 3 years, I had been like really, really focused on meditating, and at that point, I had got like the best I had ever been at it. It took me such a long time just to
yeah,
get good at it. So I think that kind of
yeah.
helped me out a lot.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I see.
Um,
Meditation definitely helps for sure. I always recommend that to people because you have to be able to concentrate.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And once I got good at that, that kind of like that in itself kind of took me to another level. In my own thought process, right? My own
Yeah.
existence. Um, so that was pretty cool for myself. But so like when you were astral projecting, right? And what's like some of the first, I don't know, other entities or in the form of positive entities, that you come across or that you saw?
Yeah. Throughout the years, it seems like the more I astral project, the more I experienced. The experiences became more complex. And when I was in like high school age or my early 20s or so, I started to see other people that had passed away, friends and family. My dad passed away in 2009. And like a year and a half after he passed away or so, that whole time, I was seeing him in the astral realm. And I knew it was him. I knew it was my dad. And I could talk to him and hug him and everything. And I could see other people that had passed away. And of course, like what I would call is like guardian angels, like these angelic beings that are just pure loving light. I would see them from time to time. Now, I don't always see these entities every time I astral project. It just happens like without intention. I'll see like a guardian, what I would describe as a guardian angel, like this pure white light of just love and joy, that would like hu- hug me with love is what it felt like. Um, so you could see like a range of different beings. And then I started having some wild experiences with interdimensional aliens. And this is when I thought, oh my goodness, no one's going to believe me. They're going to think I'm crazy when I start saying, oh, I saw aliens last night. That took me a long time to share with people because I was really nervous that people were going to think that I was lying or crazy. But that has become really common for me is to see different aliens. And then I found out my mom was seeing different interdimensional aliens too. And different, she sees something totally different than what I see, which I think is really interesting. But I believe her when she tells me these things too. So there's like a whole spectrum of different entities you could see, and sometimes you could see other people too. Like I've met up with friends in the astral realm. We were both like, we're going to astral project tonight, and we're going to meet up in the astral realm. and we were able to do that.
Oh, that's a
So there's a lot
yeah,
of, yeah, a
yeah,
lot of positive experiences, not just dark entities.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you see these other entities, are they in like, and I know you're saying like interdimensional, so I guess they're not like within our realm of reality.
No, I think interdimensional is like the best way to describe them. And I've heard, like other researchers and people call them interdimensional too, because it's somewhere in the astral plane on a different, not in our physical 3D world, but in this other realm, these entities seem to live or travel. Maybe they could end up in the, our physical world, and then also visit us in these in the astral plane.
Right.
So it's like a spectrum there, but interdimensional beings, that's what I think is a term to describe them best.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, I think a lot of these visitors that we get nowadays are from another dimension anyway. So yeah, I think that's fair. I have
Yeah.
a a friend of mine who he's died twice at two different times in his life, right? And he come back, and and now he's able to like hear voices, right? And he doesn't talk about it a lot because he's like people are gonna think I'm crazy. But he's hearing the voices are like from entities that tell him, "Hey, this we live in this universe, this kind of universe." And he said they tell him, "Hey, this is what we're doing in our universe. This is what's going on over here. That they're like in a different, like in a multiverse, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, that's really interesting. I've heard similar stories of people that have near-death experiences,
mhm,
or something traumatic happens, like they fall and hit their head,
mhm,
and then afterwards they are opened up where they could hear or see different things. So that's really interesting.
yeah,
The near-death experience, I guess, or the fact that that happened to him,
yeah,
opened him up. So I definitely believe I'd be interested in hearing what he has to say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I tell him too all the time. I say, you need to write this stuff down when they're talking to you. But he
Yeah,
kind of tunes them out because it scares him a little bit. you know, he gets, you know,
yeah. I could understand that. Sometimes when you experience these things, they're so real, but it's almost hard to believe that you're experiencing it,
right.
because you know the world wants to suppress these things in a sort of way, like, oh no, you're crazy, that can't be real, that's just, you're having a hallucination, that's not
Mhm,
real, or
mhm,
you feel this sort of pressure. But I just, ever since I was little, no, it's not a hallucination, it's not these things. I know science, mainstream science wants to define it one way or say it's not real, but I know that's not the truth. The truth is that the universe is a big place, and there's these different things that happen to us, and there's different entities, there's these shadow people, we could astral, these things are possible and it's real. So I was always just like drawn to this stuff because of the experiences that I had. It's just, it opens everything up when you experience these things. It's like doing ayahuasca, all of a sudden a different world is opened up to you.
yeah. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah.
Really? What
That's,
was that
yeah.
experience like for you?
Very intense. Someone asked me, is it like astral projecting, like going through it? Because I go through portals when I astral project a lot of times and end up in these different areas, different dimensions or whatever. But it's kind of similar, but it felt like my physical body, like I was completely just lost in it, just gone. And when I astral project, I know I have a sense of being, of like my physical body is there. I'm in my astral body, and I'm going to different places. But with the ayahuasca, I was just completely transported to another dimension. I lost all sense of being. I lost all sense of who I was. I was so far into it. It's kind of hard to explain.
Mhm.
That's the best way I could explain it, is that I was just utterly transported somewhere else, and I had no sense of who I was in this physical form. And it was super intense, but also the most incredible, life-changing experience I've ever had. And I'm so glad that I was able to experience that. It changed everything for me.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I haven't tried that, but I definitely want to just to experience it. I heard tons of people who like yourself say it was, it changed their life, right? Uh, it
Yeah,
opened them
yeah,
up
it
to so
did.
much more. Yeah. I was watching, I think it was on one of the Joe Rogan show. I'm not sure, but I think it was his show. He was talking about a guy who tried that, and I don't know how long it lasts. It doesn't like last forever or too long, right? Um, but when he came back out of it, he said that he was living underwater. He got married and had kids. To him, he was gone for like a lifetime, and
Yeah, yeah,
you know, and he came back and he was like really like depressed that he couldn't get back to that place. But yeah.
yeah. It feels a lot longer. Like I thought, yeah, I thought I was experiencing it like all night for like hours and hours and hours, and then I found out it was only an hour long. And I was like, an hour? Like, oh man, I thought it was like 12 hours later or something like that.
Yeah,
You really go deep. I mean, you can. Each
yeah,
time it's different. People experience different things, but um, the first time I tried it, I went so deep into it, and it felt like a long time. And as it was kind of like, I guess, coming down off of it that first time, I was looking around, and in the bushes, I could see the bushes look like gray aliens that were kind of dancing a little bit, or like moving in a way that like they were just in a moving in a way that was similar to dancing. But I thought that was so interesting. I was like really focused on that too. I was like, oh my goodness, gray aliens, because I seen the gray aliens during astral projection. Those are one of the entities that I see from time to time. And so I thought that connection was really interesting. And when I see them and when I astral project, I'm terrified. I've always just been terrified. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see them. That's no too much for me. They're terrifying. I don't want that. But during the ayahuasca, I was like, oh, well, they're gentle. They're not actually trying to harm me. I'm just thinking they want to harm me, but that's not the case. They're observing me. It's something different. So I
mhm.
don't know if that was like a legit connection to what I was experiencing, or if that was just me making that connection during that time. But it helped me a little bit with how I view my interactions with them, because up until then, like I said, I was just like completely terrified.
Well, that's
And
interesting too that you said that about them seeming like they were dancing because that is something that is reported when people have seen these aliens, especially like during like abductions. That is something that does happen. It's not reported a lot, or at least it's not something that everybody knows. But some of the people I've talked to have talked to me about that. They did like they were dancing.
really,
Yeah,
really,
that's interesting.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
That's super interesting. I'd like to look further into that, because
yeah.
I haven't heard that one before. But yeah, and I thought it was a little bit funny at the time. I was like, wow, these gray aliens are dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every time before I'd seen them, they're terrifying, but now they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, and some people, like you say, that some people see them and they're terrified of them. Some people aren't, So, yeah. But I personally
Yeah,
think they serve their purpose is served by whoever's controlling them. I don't think they're their own thing. I think they're almost like Oompa Loompas or something.
yeah, yeah. That's what I think too. When the ones that I've seen, and I know people have reported different types of gray aliens. I've seen the small ones that aren't very tall,
Hmm.
and they're like robotic, or what's it called? They were like robots. That I think that's the word I'm trying to look
Yeah.
for. But they weren't like a biological entity. They're like these robots that looked like they're biological, but they
Hmm.
weren't, and their consciousness was just in these robots.
Hmm.
That's the type that I saw, that I've seen. I haven't seen the other ones. People report like the tall grays or different ones, but I got the sense that something was controlling them and they weren't acting on their own will.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty much pretty common. I think so. You know.
Yeah.
So have you ever like actually like interacted with any of these other ETs, or I don't know what you want to call them, other entities from other dimensions?
Usually when I see them, I don't, I wish I could say that I'm like really like, oh, here's my opportunity to talk with them and to see what's going on. But in that moment, I'm usually like, oh, whoa, I get a little uh freak out or something and I'm like, what's going on? Because I don't expect to see these things. And then all of a sudden you have something in front of you that's so foreign. We're used to seeing other humans,
Mhm.
so when we see something else, this is how I react personally though. you know um I get scared, and it's difficult for me to overcome. Like when I see the grays, I get scared. And there was one time I tried to keep calm. I tried to keep, let me see what's going on. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna stay curious and not freak out. But I lost it. I got too scared and I got too nervous, and all I wanted to do was just get out of that situation because I was afraid of what was going to happen. So I haven't communicated with these things. um I haven't spoken to them. I haven't, I wish I could say that I have, maybe one day.
Right.
But when I see like a angelic figure or a deceased loved one or something, and then I feel this love inside and this peace, that's when I'm like safe and, to talk and to,
Mhm.
have conversations. But with the interdimensional beings, I get scared and I try to get out of it.
So is it safe to say that a lot of the other beings, they're aware of your presence?
Yes. I think when we're within the astral realm and there's different entities there, they know that you're there before you know that you're there. I think they have a greater understanding of what's going on, and we're just like visitors in that plane. And if they want to find you, they'll find you. If they want to, speak to you or whatever, that's what's going to happen.
Mhm.
They're more accustomed to being in that plane than we are in this human form.
Right. Okay. And have you ever went anywhere and you were like, maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Like you were, trespassing. I guess maybe is a good word for it.
No,
Okay.
when I go places, it feels like I'm meant to be there for a certain reason. Everything is meaningful. It happens to me suddenly most often, and I'll end up in a place and it feels like I'm supposed to be there I was taken there for a reason.
Mhm.
Or taken. Um, like my soul wanted me to be there for a certain purpose. I've never ended up anywhere where I wasn't supposed to be. If I end up in someone's home, it's always like a friend or family member or something like that. If I, my experience with the Grays, I saw something and I thought, oh, this is really important. Like this is something serious is going on here. but I was being shown that for a reason. So everything seems meaningful,
That's good.
if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. That, that makes a lot of sense. And I did want to ask you one more question. Um, so out in the forest where I do all my Bigfoot stuff at, right? And of course, a lot of other people do the research out in the forest. Is it possible for me to run across a dark entity in the forest?
Absolutely. I think you could run into them anywhere, and people do report seeing them. Like, it doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime, it doesn't matter your location,
Mhm,
you could see them.
mhm,
And people often report them following them through, I've heard forest before, through cities or something, like there's a entity over here, or entity over, they could be anywhere.
right. And the reason why I asked that is because uh, I think a lot of paranormal stuff goes on in the forest anyway, and a lot of that gets lumped in there with Bigfoot. So when I saw one of your videos and you were talking about the different entities, and you had one in particular that was pretty big, you know, I think it's a big guy. And I was like, man, I bet you that sucker's out in the woods too. And people see one and they're like,
Yeah.
that's a Bigfoot. Yeah, so I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I think it's interesting too. A lot of people claim, well, some people claim that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being,
Mhm,
that Bigfoot is somehow connected with extraterrestrials,
mhm,
or, an interdimensional alien or something like that. I've heard that before, and I thought that was really interesting.
mhm.
Hear that, especially up in Mount Shasta area. If you go
Right.
up
Yeah.
there, everyone's like, Bigfoot's an interdimensional being and can disappear and appear wherever they want, but they're interdimensional beings. Like that's what they say. Like
Right. Well,
like
see,
it's no big deal.
yeah, yeah. I think that there's a flesh and blood version that belongs here on Earth, but I also believe there's another version or whatever a type that is interdimensional. I think, and they all get lumped into the same category together. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think you're right. I don't like how people lump things together like that,
right.
because
Yeah,
there's, yeah, it's a big universe. There's a lot going on.
right. Yeah. So, what about you? What do you got going on? We're at the end of the show. You got anything going on that you want to tell people about? Any your social medias, your contacts, your links, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, to follow me, my main channels on TikTok, you can find me at Astral K, all one word, Astral K. I also post on YouTube at Astral_K. So you could find my social media accounts there. I post every week, multiple times a week. I'm trying to get out as much information as possible, and I'm trying to help people, like I said. So if
Mhm.
anyone needs help with these dark shadow entities, I am more than happy to help. Or if anyone would like to learn how to astral project, I work with people one on one with dark entities and astral projection as well. So you can find me on TikTok or on YouTube.
Mhm. And Sally says, I do believe that entities are all around us in the air, in the wind. Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And for everyone else that's tuning in and listening, man, go find her on TikTok. That's where I found her. That's where you'll find so many of her videos. They're all great. She talks about a lot of like I said, the dark entities and the astral projection. She's really good. She's very knowledgeable. So and if anybody wants to get in contact with her and they can't, let me know. I'll get in contact for you guys, and I'll find her. I'll find her. Um, but yeah, thanks a lot to everyone in the chat room for tuning in. And Kay, thank you again for doing the show. I really do appreciate it. I want to have you back on again at some time in the future. We got a lot more to cover. I think. I think we just barely kind of scratched the surface.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. I thank you again for inviting me on. I'm really excited about this, and I would love to come back on and discuss some more things because, like you said, we just kind of barely covered some of the stuff there. So, a lot
Mhm.
more to talk about.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, everyone, you guys have a good night. Kate, hold on real quick for me, please.